management for you as an individual or your organisation?
So we've got improving productivity. People have said that. We've got ability to meet deadlines.
Absolutely, totally agree.
Achieving targets.
Yeah, fantastic.
Any more?
Any more for any more?
Better focused on what I need to achieve.
Fantastic. I mean,
better way of working.
Say that again, Lottie.
Better way of working.
Right, fantastic, absolutely. I mean, as always, your lists are better than mine, but this is kind of what I had going on. I had greater productivity and efficiency. You guys covered that within your chat box, absolutely fantastic. A better professional reputation. I think if we have good time management, therefore we are more productive, we're more efficient, we're more quality driven, therefore we're going to have a better professional reputation as individuals and as businesses. One, chuck into most of these things, but less stress. If your time management is good and strong, the chances are you're going to reduce your stress, reduce your anxiety around meeting deadlines, or if you've got too much work to do, you can use some of the techniques I'm going to talk about later to actually break it down into manageable chunks. Lottie undoubtedly has her to-do list next to her now with loads of things crossed off. I have my post-it notes all over, but that therefore is reducing my kind of stress about the amount I've got going on. Increased opportunities for advancement. I think that quality-driven piece, if we're good at time management, we're therefore more efficient and effective, we're likely to have a greater opportunity for a career advancement. And greater opportunities to kind of achieve our personal goals. I think that came across in the chat, Lottie, something about goals or focus on something to achieve. Very much that if you're good at time management in work, that should come into your personal life as well to an extent, and therefore you'll be more likely to achieve your goals. You know, whether that's becoming more efficient in work, gaining your promotion, getting extra salary, therefore buying your house or your car, however it looks, that opportunity to create your life goals is there. Greater time management might give you more time in the evenings to plan holidays, activities, projects, extensions, for instance, things like that. Any thoughts on that? Any differing opinions? Any more ideas?
Someone's definitely agreeing with less stress.
And that's one of those key things about all our skills. So yes, we're developing that skill, that qualities that we need within work, but actually all of these reduce that level of stress to an extent by being really good at these things. Fantastic. So I think to be efficient at time management, you have to be able to prioritize your workload. So a couple of questions there for you. How does effective time management relate to prioritizing your workload? A couple of just to think about yourself there and how to prioritize your workload. These are just for you to think about at the moment. I'm going to go through a couple of ideas about how I like to prioritize my workload. These are not right or wrong. These are things that I use kind of regularly. Especially this week, it's been absolutely manic. So I've actually had to create a load of things to make sure I get everything done. So the to-do list. Lottie, have you got your to-do list there?
Yes.
Every day, that's the to-do list. And that idea of actually having everything there, everything ready to go. Gareth, you all right? Seeing everything there, ready to go, that tick off, so you know exactly what you've got to do. Obviously, as emails come in, you've got to be updating your to-do list as things get done. As I see Lottie do regularly on course, massive strike through it, little celebration dance, all of these things take place. Identify the urgent versus important. I'm going to touch a bit on that later. And a bit of a strategy, kind of identifying that and working out how to kind of segregate our activities. Assess the value. You know, what is it actually doing? What is it adding? You know, is this email that I'm taking 2-3 hours on actually going to add any value, or is it more about how I'm coming across? So really assess the value of your work. Order tasks by estimated effort. I've got another little tip for you later on this to kind of help you do that. Be flexible and adaptable. You know, working remotely particularly, we have that moment where emails fly in, calls fly in, and we're less inclined to be able to ignore it because we're not in a separate meeting room or something like that. So we're more likely to pick up those things quicker, and we have to be able to be adaptable. But that also means being able to turn off these communication methods. You know, if you're writing a report, sometimes you've got to shut off your Outlook, shut off Slack, WhatsApp, whatever tools you use, just to be able to get that done without getting interrupted. So another really key one there. And know when to cut. Easier said than done. And I'm not suggesting you go to your bosses or anyone and say, no, I'm no longer doing that. But it's about things that don't actually need to be done. Those processes where actually, is it something I need to do today? Can I cut it? Can I add it to next week's to-do list? Any thoughts on that at all?
We've had a couple of points come in. One from Jordan, which is making sure any deadline-based jobs are completed before any of the easier jobs.
Fantastic, yeah.
And Gareth's come in and said sometimes his list of action points sometimes gets so big that actually on his to-do list is to consolidate his action list.
Yeah, absolutely agree with that one. Absolutely agree.
I sometimes like at the top of my list, right, to write a to-do list for the day. Then it's like an easy win at the beginning of the day, isn't it?
Fantastic. I kind of then thought about, I've got this idea of how to prioritise my workload. I'm going to talk about some strategy, but what are time robbers? And for me, I've got kind of 8 time robbers, and these kind of go across a lot of individuals. You'll see these things as elements that stop us really progressing within the day, within our workload. So I've got procrastination, and I've got some anti-procrastination tips later on. I've got that poor personal planning. I know that if I haven't planned my day to the minute at the moment, it just goes, and then I've lost what I need to do. Poor delegation. If you have the option to delegate, then actually delegating badly can end up with extra work in the future. Interruptions by people without appointments. Obviously, that could be phone calls if you're working remotely, elements like that. Poor use of media, using Outlook, turning it off, things like that, really, really efficient. Reading junk mail. We've had an influx over the last couple of days of just stuff, and you have to wade through it to make sure it's not a real email. And even though all of our filters are securely set, so by the time I've done 20 or 30 of those, I've got to work out an hour's gone. So it's about making sure those filters are set and used really efficiently. Lack of concern for good time management. Some people unfortunately have that idea, I'll just turn up to work and I'll just do it all as it comes in. Actually, that planning, that need to do things is really, really key. And then, as we keep saying, that list of priorities, that key information. Where is it? How does it work? What do I need to get done today? And that prioritize list is really, really key. Any thoughts, any feelings on that? Anyone got any other time robbers? I was going to add kids into there, because my little one will undoubtedly walk in about 2 minutes time because he can hear me talking, or there'll be a hairdryer, or the door will go and working remotely. Anyone got any other time robbers?
Yeah, someone's agreeing with kids.
Yeah, and I mean, we don't mean that they're an interruption or anything like that, but when they suddenly run in screaming.
Joanne's coming and says she's often faced with, I've got a quick question for you, which in turn potentially isn't a quick question, it takes a while.
Absolutely agree with that. And again, it's that having the media formats, you know, if you're working on things, actually closing things down, you know, being able to reject phone calls when you know you're in that process, auto replies and things like that are really, really essential for that.
Yeah, Rebecca earlier said she likes the top tip of turning Outlook off. Don't currently do this.
So lots of you cracks.
Can you hear me?
I can. It's probably my internet because it's probably watching people or something.
No, I was saying Rebecca just a short while ago was saying she liked the top tip of turning Outlook off. It's not something she's done before.
Fantastic. Brilliant.
Oh, someone's got a question. Hang on, quick question. That was much relevance. Yeah, quick question, but then going off on many different tangents that don't have much relevance.
Yeah, absolutely agree with that one.
Being overwhelmed by your list can lead to procrastination.
Yeah, I've got some little procrastination bits for you now, so that works really well. I mean, first of all, what is procrastination? I mean, it's that idea of putting things off. At times, we all do this, and I don't think anyone can actually say they don't in any way procrastinate, whether that's all thinking about a chocolate biscuit downstairs, I'm just going to go get that, then I need to have a cup of tea, or then I might as well chuck the washing on the line, and therefore 20 minutes has gone really, really quickly. These things happen, and these are things that we have to accept happen to be able to overcome them. Once we have kind of identified we're procrastinating, we then need to kind of work out why we're procrastinating. Usually it's because we don't want to do that task, or it's going to be a long task, which is usually my one. That moment of, oh, I'll do all my little tasks now because that one's going to take me an hour. That process of actually identifying why. And then I think adopting some strategies, really, really key. So I've got a couple that I use, and again, you guys will have better ones, but these were mine from the other day because I was in a procrastinating mood, to be honest. So break the habit, go for a walk, change locations, change who you're talking to, could be anything. I know if I talk to certain people within the business, I'm more likely just to crack on with some things. If I talk to others, I'm more likely to either end up with more work or actually end up doing other projects or getting excited about other things and putting stuff off even more. So break the habit, work out why you're doing these things. Create rewards, a nice bit of fruit, a bit of biscuit, a cup of tea, a little walk. If you really want, just buy yourself something off Amazon, which is where I got into trouble massively over lockdown. Just buying things off Amazon for the sake of it because I've done a good day. Peer pressure, Lottie and I do this a lot. Tell someone what you're going to do and make them chase up on you. You know, Lottie every morning virtually tells me I'm going to get this done, and then if by the afternoon she hasn't done it, I get, oh, I'm sorry, I haven't been able to do it. But actually that drive to do it and that sharing it with someone is really, really key. Lottie, you like that one, don't you?
Yeah, I like to, I don't know, I feel like if I tell you that I'm going to do something, I don't like letting anyone down. So I feel that responsibility and I have to get it done.
Absolutely. Except for my massive list that then comes into my thing, then I'm going to do that too. And then change. Identify the unpleasant consequences. Now, I'm not talking about being fired or anything like that, but I know if I've got a deadline in the morning, if I don't get it done, it's then going to have a knock-on effect for other people. So actually, what's the knock-on? What's the issue? If I'm tight on time because I finish at 4 o'clock or whatever it is, have I actually got to go morning, reshape my day, however it looks? Calculate the cost of your time. Depends on what you're doing, what projects you're working on, but actually how much does my time cost and what should I be looking at doing first? Keep a to-do list visible. Obviously, I've asked Lots about 5 times now already to chuck up a to-do list, but it's always there. It's instantly to hand, it's ready to go, and I think that's massively key. You guys can't see, but I have post-it notes all over my wall about what I need to do this week, this month, this year, and then it gets a bit scary when you look at it sometimes, but actually then ticking it off, using some of these strategies, what's most important, really helps. Set time-bound goals. One that I massively enjoy is actually setting myself a deadline of I am going to get this done in 15 minutes. I'm going to get this done in 20 minutes. So massively important for me, that one. And one task at a time. There's so many studies and discussions about being able to multitask and things like that. I'm still on the fence about whether multitasking is actually possible fully on 2 tasks at the same time. So I personally will always go 1 task at a time because that's how I feel I break things down. Any thoughts, any opinions? Anyone got any other anti-procrastination strategies they use at home?
Gareth's come in and said, eat that frog. So that's starting with the task you're most intimidated with. And I agree, it's often not as bad as you kind of think it originally would be. And sometimes then the rest of your day is a lot more productive once you get that big job out the way.
Yeah, I thought I'd chip in here because somebody once, they told me that there's a concept called effective forecasting, which is forecasting the effect something might have on you. So whether something's going to be really good or really bad, And humans are actually really bad at effective forecasting. I'm sure we've all had situations where you were really excited about something and it turned out to be a bit of a damp squib, or things that you were really dreading that turned out to not be so bad, or even things you were dreading that actually turned out to be quite fun. And it's because we're actually very bad at forecasting the effect something will have on you. So I'm a big believer in, if there's something you're really dreading, apart from the fact it really gets you down just thinking about it, do it first, because it gets it out of the way, but also it often is not as bad as you think. And I've had tasks that I've put off for weeks that when I got down with them took like 10 minutes to sort out, and actually weren't that bad at all. And they do make you feel so much better for the rest of the day then.
I agree. So I've got a couple of time management strategies that I actually use. Again, if you think they're loopy, that's fine. Some of them you might actually think, actually that works really, really well, or that would work for me. So the first one is my favourite, to be honest, just because I like a pickle and I like a jar for some reason. It's a bit weird, but the pickle jar theory. The idea behind this is you break your kind of tasks down into rock, sand, and pebbles. Each one relates to kind of the key element of that task, whether it's a giant important task, they're the rocks. If it's sand, that's the small important task that you need to get done. And those pebbles are those sort of average importance tasks. So in my head, I'm really easily able to visualize my jar for the day, and then what is my big task. So this morning it's delivering a time management session, so that'll be a massive rock in the middle of that. And then I've got all my little bits around it, like make sure the emails are off, make sure Slack's off, try and keep the family out the room by barring up the door and things like that. So it's those little tasks are then broken down. And by doing that, I know I can then empty that big rock out this morning, and that's going to leave me kind of a third of a jar gone. So then my tasks are just able to be broken down. And really, really nice then for when you get tasks coming in, you can address the importance of it by whether it's sand, whether it's pebbles, whether it's rocks, and then you can build those things around the rest of the day. So one of my favourite ones, one that I use virtually every day. I don't draw a pickle jar, just to be clear, and I don't write my little tasks in it, but you could do that. I've seen a couple of development tasks from some of our apprentices have actually done that for theirs, which were really, really exciting. Any thoughts on that one at all? Just all amazed by it from there. Right, so the Pareto Principle, however you say that, I do apologise if I've just absolutely destroyed his name as always, but I'm going to just have a look at the kind of basics of this. And the idea is you break your tasks down into what requires the most effort and what's going to get the most results, or actually what's going to require the least effort to get the maximum result. You can then schedule your day around this idea, right, these little tasks are going to get all my big bits off my plate. So I'm going to do all of those first, then that huge report, which actually only got a tiny little element to it, I'm going to do later on. So that I basically blitzed through what's actually required and what requires my effort, but gets that maximum reward really, really quickly. And again, it's just a way of you guys thinking about your tasks and how you break them down into that working strategy to be effective with your time management piece. Any thoughts on that one? Fantastic. Gareth, I'm hoping you'll be able to chat through this one as it is yours. I'm going to rename it, I think, the Gareth Principle now. But it's your urgent versus important matrix, if you're happy to.
Yeah, no. Is there a second slide on the next?
There is indeed.
Yeah, so this is the one that somebody showed me, I don't know, maybe 4 or 5 years ago, and it really transformed kind of the way I try to work. Not always necessarily how I do work, because you slip into bad habits, but so they showed me this matrix where on one axis you've got how important something is, And that level of importance, the key to me is important to you and your future. Because obviously there'll be loads of things that are important to other people, and it's easy to get kind of sidetracked into dealing with other people's important stuff. You've got to make sure you're clear about what's important to you. And actually, I'm a big believer that time management is more about personal management, because we all get the same amount of time. Nobody gets more than 24 hours in a day. What matters is how you use the time, and making sure you're using time to do stuff that matters to you ultimately in your career or in your life. So the importance is about, important to you and your ultimate objectives, which is why, it's useful to actually know what your ultimate objectives are. And then the urgency bit, obviously, is how quickly something needs to be dealt with. And I spent years and years, possibly even decades of my life stuck in the box where it's got the do first. So is important and is urgent? And I think it's really easy, and I'm sure a lot of us get stuck in that. I think of it as kind of firefighting, where you're constantly dealing with stuff that's really urgent and has to be done here and now. It's kind of situation where, if any of you have ever got to a Friday afternoon and you've been really busy all week, but you look back and you think, well, what have I actually done? I don't seem to have actually achieved anything. That's because you're probably in that urgent firefighting mode. And the danger with that is there'll be plenty of things that are not urgent but are really important to you. And those things can easily get pushed to the background, and you kind of ignore them sometimes for years and years and years. And you suddenly realize, well, there was this thing that was really important to me, but because it was never urgent, I never got round to doing it. It always get pushed to the back. And as a result, you end up never doing them. You never do those things that are really important to you. And somebody sort of showed me this grid a few years ago, and they said to me, never let your long term be the victim of your short term. So never let those really big long-term goals of what you ultimately want to achieve go into the background because you're firefighting day to day. So actually what I've really tried hard to do in the last few years is to not do urgent stuff. I've got a team of people I work with, and where possible, I try and get other people to do the more urgent stuff, because that allows me to spend my time doing stuff that's not urgent. I spend my time doing the stuff that is scheduled. That's what I like to do. I schedule it in my diary, and I make sure I therefore get round to doing it. But I try and spend my time doing the things that I could, in theory, leave a month or a year even, and actually it wouldn't really matter. So, maybe opening up a new business or something, it doesn't really matter if I didn't do that for another year or two. But actually it does matter, because it'll never get done unless you actually make sure you schedule it and do it. Actually, since I started moving myself into that blue quadrant rather than the green quadrant, it's made such a difference to how much I've achieved, rather than that firefighting approach, to actually do stuff that I really want to do. So yeah, that absolutely changed my kind of my approach to work a few years ago.
Brilliant, thanks, Gareth. I think with all these techniques about using what works for you, but I've got a new one that I've been using actually over the last couple of weeks. The Pomodoro time, again, if my pronunciation is gone, I'm very sorry, but it's this idea that you set yourself a 25-minute timer. Other apps, other types of timers are available, and I know there's people within the call who actually have one of these timers and are actually using it day to day like this. So the idea behind this is you set yourself that 25-minute burst of time period in which you're going to get things done, and then you're going to have a break after it, 5-10 minutes. So I've got colleagues who use timers literally on their phone, and it goes off every 2 minutes when you're on a call because it's telling them to do something. But this really works for me at the moment when I know I'm going through phases and non-stop, and Gareth has just proven that. And I use this all the time now because I know that I've got that 25 minutes, I can blitz that task, get it done, go down, run around the garden, come back, refresh, do the next task. And I found this over the last couple of weeks. This has made it possible for me to smash through a list that I did think was actually unmanageable at one point, but I'm able to go and right, 25 minutes done, 25 minutes done, 25 minutes done. And it really, really works to kind of focus your mind on your task, because you should basically say, I'm going to do 25 minutes of emails, blitz through. I'm going to do 25 minutes on this report, blitz through. And then going to do 25 minutes calls with the team, check they're happy. And it means we're quickly going through tasks, but you're focusing it. Whereas if I say to myself, oh, I'm going to speak to all the team today over the course of the day, that's probably my day gone by the time I've done that. because you get caught up in other things. But if I drop Lottie, cause a right Lottie, 10 minutes, let's have a quick catch up, and then a timer goes off. Bye, see you later. Next call. And then I'm really streamlining my approach and probably still getting the same work information I need than if Lottie and I chat for half an hour about artificial grass, you know, extensions, things like that, which we do when we have time. But this is my recent one that I've been using a lot to get through my kind of to-do list. So again, whatever works for you. Any thoughts on that one?
I remember actually when we were creating our own material, actually Crystal's on the call, I can see, and Crystal kind of led the development of our AAT product, which some people on the call might even use, you know, all of our notes and mocks and question banks and all of our online lectures. And so we used to buy books in from other publishers, and we decided we thought we could do a better job. And I think Crystal worked out at one point that it was going to be something like 10,000 pages of material that we were going to be required to write, kind of between Crystal and me and I think maybe one other colleague. And it was literally going to be about 3 years of work to do all of this stuff. So much that you look at it and think, God, that's too big a task. That's too impossible. But I've always been a believer that if you break the impossible down into lots and lots and lots of little possibles, it actually suddenly becomes far, far easier. And so, you know, I had my allocation of which papers I was going to do, you know, however many thousands of pages notes I needed to write. And I used my little smarter timer. I literally set myself, and I used 50 minutes at a time. So I took an hour and I said, right, I'm going to work for 50 minutes and then have 10 minutes off. And in each 50 minutes, I used to schedule out, right, how many pages I'm going to do between like 9 and 9:50, and then how many pages between 10 and 10:50, and how many examples I'm going to write. And literally, and I did it 50 minutes at a time. You know, I broke almost 3 years of work into 50-minute chunks. And actually, you crack through it, and because you're ticking off all these little challenges, it made such a difference. And actually, I'm really proud of kind of what we created in that phase now. But it was only really possible because, you know, we broke it down into loads and loads of tiny, tiny little jobs. So thanks, Crystal. That was a nice little exercise there.
My final kind of little technique is what I call the 4 Ds of time management. And I mean, we've kind of talked about these roundabout, that idea of deleting it. You know, I know I'm the world's worst for this. I store all my emails, they're all organized and things like that. But then I'll always come back to 1 or 2 and I think, actually, should I work on that now? Sometimes actually clearing that from your Outlook, clearing it from your to-do list is better, because you can improve things, but sometimes you spend so long improving little things that actually it goes bigger and bigger and bigger. So that idea of delete it, remove it, delegate it if you've got the opportunity to. Obviously, correct delegation, make sure you give it to the right people, so it's not going to come back with even more activity that needs to be done on it. Just do it, stealing a slogan from a well-known brand there, but just do it, that idea of actually, as Gareth said with the frog earlier, that process, just get it done, get it out of the way and move on. And then defer it, again, kind of linking to that urgency and important matrix, that idea of, does it need doing now? Is it actually urgent? Is it actually important? Work out where it needs to go so that you can kind of plan your time effectively.
That's the bit I think you've got to be a bit careful about as well, because it's very easy to defer really important things because they're not urgent, but you end up deferring them almost indefinitely. And, you know, I know a lot of people who've gone years thinking, oh, I know I need to do this really important thing that's going to make a big difference in my life, but I never quite get round to it because I'm constantly firefighting. So that's kind of that difference that I've tried to make is, yeah, fair enough, you know, you might defer things for a week or 2, but trying to avoid deferring them kind of indefinitely, particularly if they are important to you and they do matter.
And then with the Ds, it's about looking at that other principles that you're using to make sure you work it out. You know, the Ds can be quite a quick one, but you can end up just going, well, I'm going to delete all my emails today, so I don't have to worry about anything. Not the smart way away. You've got to use it in tandem with something else. One of my favourite things then is get organised. When lockdown happened, I was on holiday. When I got back, I realised I was going to have to spend a fair few months in this tiny little room. And as Lottie will probably testify, there was stuff everywhere. And being the individual I was, everything having to be straight and organised, I couldn't cope with it. I just couldn't get my emails done because there was a box of toys and things like that. So I spent a whole evening just ransacking the place, clearing everything out, which then created a lot of extra projects. So because we then did a downstairs, understairs cupboard, new sheds and stuff like that. But actually I cleared the room and then I was able to concentrate on my work activity. So declutter your desk or your workspace. You know, at the moment, if you are working remotely, you know, that is kind of blue sky thinking. I'm lucky enough to have a nice little room. I can lock myself away. But even if you're working in the corner of your lounge, your dining room table, whatever it is, just having it organized makes a massive difference to your mentality and the kind of how you're going to work and progress. I'm a massive user of Outlook, as we all are probably. There are other brands out there and other tools, but actually using that task system, using your calendar effectively to plan your day. I schedule time in when I'm actually doing things, so that if Lottie jumps on my calendar, it literally says, bugger off, Lottie, I'm doing this. Whatever it is, that process is there. It's making it clear that to people who look and sync with a calendar that actually he's working on that, so I'll call later when there's a gap. Create a filing system. I'm not just talking about kind of old school filing cabinets, but I'm talking about within your desktop. The amount of times I log on and do a share screen at the moment, and my team have got their whole desktop covered in files. My brain can't cope with that. I can't understand why they're not all in files and things like that. Obviously depends how you work and your kind of methodology, but actually I find it difficult if things aren't organised and in the right place. So when I log on and share a screen with Lottie and she's got stuff everywhere, my initial thing is, whoa, what's going on here? Let's plan, let's organise, let's support. What are we working on? And same with emails. I prefer everything in a nice little folder, but I know some people just like their inbox full because you can search quickly. Everything should have its place. I mean, that kind of comes along the idea of that declutter, that saving files in the right way. But I think as soon as you know where things are, you can access it quickly. I don't know about you guys, but if you hot desk at all, you spend that first 20 minutes setting everything up again. That process of making sure everything's where you need it, everything's straightforward, because I can't work if my laptop's not at the right height or my standing desk doesn't work as it did this morning. It decided just to freeze halfway up. Those processes, I can't work in that kind of process, so I need everything set and worked out. Interruptions, talked about this earlier. If you have that office door open policy, that can be quite hard if you're working through things. Or the worst thing, you know, you're on a telephone call and then you've got 3 or 4 members of your team stacked up behind, queuing like you're at a deli, things like that. That process is really, really difficult to actually have a little sign. I did that a while ago with a nice little note in my notebook saying, I'm on a call, leave me alone, come back in 10, whatever it was. One for me personally is meetings should be no more than an hour. I think after about 40 minutes, it's kind of accepted that people lose interest. So that hour is probably a fair time. Again, it's not always possible, but the breaking those meetings down into chunks then helps that, new agenda items, things like that. And close the office door if you can, because as soon as you create that barrier, people are less likely to open it. And that can be the virtual office door as well, that out of office, that if you're using certain systems like Slack or WhatsApp, your status is away, working, project, whatever it is, to let people know that you're not available immediately. Any thoughts on that?
Can you hear me again now?
I can, yes.
Well, I think I was having microphone problems. Jordan's come in and said about about your environment again. When working at home, the living room was a mess, the desk was cluttered, and it's easy to forget how easy it is for that to kind of take over. I know at the end of the working week, I work at my dining room table at the moment. I'm not fortunate enough to have a study in my house, so I work at the dining room table. So on a Friday, I clear everything off the table and put it under the stairs cupboard, and then it's the weekend time for me. So for me, that's really important to differentiate the 2 different times. But yeah, I totally agree. It can really take over, especially if you've got loads of papers and files or study material.
But that's something we were really keen on our team doing, wasn't it? They made sure they closed everything away on that Friday afternoon. because that's, you know, working remotely, whether it's, you know, you set yourself dedicated study time, whatever it is, it's very easy at the moment if you're just within working from home still or studying from home to just continue late into the evenings, or weekend, or just send that email that I forgot to do. It's so easy to do that, and actually you end up doing extra activity which isn't always beneficial. So that, I really like that one about the closing everything down, locking it away or hiding it, whatever it is, to make sure your mind is free to enjoy your time off. Fantastic. So with all of these things, there are a variety of techniques you can pick. You can make a technique that works for you, but I think it's about trial and error. The to-do list we've talked about all of those processes. The pickle jar, whatever it is, take your kind of technique, pick that technique and use it for you, and work out and try different techniques. You know, I'm very much changeable in terms of which technique I use, depending on the week, depending on what I need to do. So actually using different techniques is really, really important. Has anyone got any other techniques they use that I haven't covered? And I just use the shout at each other technique. You must get this done in 5 minutes or else.
Yeah.
Fantastic. Well, that is everything I wanted to cover this morning. I think we've talked about time management and the importance of time management. I think we've kind of identified what my time robbers are. So hopefully you then have that opportunity to think about yours, whether it's phone calls, whether it's emails coming in, whether it's you need to reset your junk email settings, whatever it is. I've talked about loads of techniques, and again, trial and error on those. Pick something, use it, but you might need to use different ones at different times. And then I think the tips on managing your time, that kind of declutter your desk, organize your mind, think about that kind of long-term goals, work out what's important, but actually what needs to get done later on. All of those processes are really, really key. Any questions on that?
Someone's asking if they're able to have the slides.
Yeah, if you just just send me your email address through the private chat and I'll whiz those over to you. Anyone else who wants to just chuck your emails across to either Lottie or me, and we can whiz all of this out. Brilliant. Unless there's any questions, thank you very much this morning. Pleasure as always. And hopefully see you all on a session in the next few days. Crystal, I'm not sure if you wanted to say anything.
Okay, thank you everyone for joining. Thank you very much, Ollie. That was really insightful, really useful. Hopefully some of you will be joining us a bit later today. So we've got some sessions running at lunchtime, so from 12:30 to 1:30. Do register for those online. We've got some people from the AAT, and we also have another speaker who's going to be talking about communication skills specifically for accountants. And then this evening we have some technical sessions running. We've got a good session which will be about written tasks and how to tackle those. So make sure you have a look at the schedule and book on, and hopefully I'll see some of you a bit later today. But have a good day, everyone.
Thanks, everyone.
Bye.